All right. Hello. Welcome to the Artificially Intelligent Podcast, where a white, cracker, hunky comedian, me, Nathan Timmel, speaks with his black African-American person of color musician friend, Barrett Antar Goodwin. And we record it because we're narcissists and we feel that our conversations are so deep and meaningful that you need to listen to us. Or something like that.
You got a haircut.
Over a week ago, I think. I haven't had a haircut for 2 or 3 weeks.
Have I seen you since you've had this haircut?
Yeah, last week with the
Fascinating.
Yeah, with the Sharon, the book blogger. I had this haircut.
Fascinating. Somehow I didn't recognize it. I'm sorry.
Oh, it looks different because the lighting always
you don't love me.
Different, but right. So I had a interesting, well, to me, thought yesterday that I wanted to bounce off you. One thought led to another, sort of thing. I posted a video on TikTok because I'm down with the kids these days, and they're TikTokers, and it immediately got not removed, but like censored in a weird way. It said that they removed the sound, so you can still see me, and I put captions on my videos, so if people are at work, they can read them, and so the captions are still up, but it said that the audio content violated community guidelines. And I know what they meant, because the video in a nutshell was Pornhub released their most searched categories. And I am guessing because I said porn. Yeah. So I re-recorded the video last night and said adult websites, and it made it through fine. And but so the thought I had was, and I'm not sure how to articulate this because I'm not really, I wasn't sitting in deep thinking about it, was just how interesting that what we feel the need to protect people from. I didn't discuss porn in any graphic detail. I didn't swear. I didn't say, fucking and sticking the whatever. I didn't, but just because I said porn, that was enough to raise a red flag and say, no, we can't have that in our thing. You can't even discuss it. And it made me think of HBO Max, I believe, where I wanted to show Truman and Hillary, my kids, the movie Twister, because they're young and I thought that'd be cool. And they thought it'd be cool, like tornado movie. Awesome. And at the beginning of Twister is the content warning. It's a warning, for kids in the room. This movie is rated whatever. And you might want to be careful because of, quote, extreme weather situations. And I started laughing because I thought that was so absurd. Like that's what it's come to, is now we're trigger warning people for extreme weather situations. And my final thought before I'll turn everything over to you is how we've really been gaslighting younger generations. We mollycoddle them. We treat them like little sissies and we protect them from everything. And then when they become adults, like millennials are, then we call them soft, entitled snowflakes, participation trophy generation with no strong will. And it's just funny because we blame them for the way we raised them, as like we instill weakness in them. And then we say, toughen up. And I just found that fascinating. And I don't want to do that to my kids. I thought it was absurd. Extreme weather situations. Ooh, you can't say the word porn. I can get it if I'm saying, hey, so I was watching Pornhub the other day and I'm jerking off and I'm coming everywhere. Like, yeah, that shouldn't be on TikTok. But just the idea that I'm mentioning porn, interesting. What are your thoughts on how we are, in my words, gaslighting future generations, and have already gaslit the millennials? We blame them for how we raised them.
Wow. Well, here's what I'll say. There's a lot in there. There's a lot. I mean, in the sense that, like, I think what you're talking about is a symptom. Like, I'm just going to go straight down to the, I feel like what you're talking about is a symptom of a kind of American ethic. I don't know that that this is a global thing. I don't know. Maybe it's even, I might even argue that it's a northeastern thing or a coastal thing, right? Like, who knows, right?
No, I would agree with that. Continue, yeah.
But I feel like there's something that is bred into us as Americans that is, if you can hide it from yourself, other people don't see it either, right? Or as long as it looks a certain way, that's what matters, right? Like what matters is how it appears to be, not what it actually is, right?
Yeah.
And when I think about things like things that weren't like name me two or three things you can remember that weren't allowed when you were a kid, when you were Hillary's age. What, you can name me a few things that weren't allowed.
My mind went the completely wrong direction, and I apologize. But the first thing I thought of was not my daughter's age, but when I was a teenager, um, high school students could smoke at the high school in the quad. Like all they had to do was just leave. You couldn't smoke inside the high school, but it was like, and just think about that in relating to, so
Right.
that could be a change for the better. Like I know you asked me one thing, but my mind went a different direction. So I need a moment to wrap around.
Well, but I mean, but that's a great example because in my high school there was a no smoking policy,
Hmm.
but there was also a section of the high school where everybody wanted to smoke. Right? It was kind of like what we have now. It's like, here's the laws, we have them, but just,
Yeah.
don't let it be seen that this is what you're doing, right? Like, and that's what I mean. Like, it comes back to that whole ethic of like, it's more important to not get caught somehow, right? But I think that when you extrapolate it up to this place, it's like what happens is the same thing that happens with the kids who are the children of the people who could smoke in the place where there was no smoking, but as long as it was out of sight, nobody cared,
Well,
right?
mine was
No,
perfectly in sight. It
yours,
was, you just had to be outside the doors. But I do have
right?
a story to tell you now, and it might be more
Mm-hmm.
relate might relate better to it. It goes with a joke I tell, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, I don't know how many, when my daughter was really young, Iowa City got a brand new playground, and it was going to be the biggest playground in the state. So everybody's like, "Oh, cool! We're getting a whole new play structure." And we went there, and this play structure, had many levels, and about a little taller than me, so 7, 8 feet off the ground, there was a bridge. There was a little tower here that you could climb up, and then the main play structure here, and they were put together by a bridge. And the bridge had like for better like a rope bridge. It had steps, spaces with gaps between them, and my daughter was afraid. Like she got up there and got on it, and you could see the ground through the gaps in the stairs. And but she was afraid, but she loved when she made it to the other side because she overcame her fear. She looked and she saw like, "Ooh, I'm 8 feet off the ground. This is really tall. I'm scared." And I thought it was neat. I'm like, wow, I haven't seen anything like, because this playground also, didn't have a merry-go-round or a teeter-totter because those things are dangerous. That's my joke. And so I don't know if it was 3 months later, 2 months later, a year later, but it's about, the playground is 20 minutes from us. And we go back, and these steps that existed, these gaps are gone. They took a very thick rubber pad and covered the spaces so that you could not see the ground. And my daughter was sad because she liked the idea that she was able to overcome her fear and walk on these steps and see the gaps between them and know she could fall and see the ground. And so I reached out. I found the company that made the play structure, and I contacted the city and said, "Hey, when you first put this up, it was awesome. Now you made it pussy." I didn't use those words, but that word. And they said, "Well, litigation, and what if someone falls and hurts themselves, or it just the standard shit you expected." And it really bothered me. It not, like going to start a campaign and letter writing and get the spaces put back. But yeah, it's
Well,
again, it
I
doesn't
mean,
really answer your question, one
yeah.
thing, but
Well,
back in our
but it
day,
does though.
playgrounds were dangerous. You learned through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, is it? when they put those rubber pieces there, is it now legitimately safer, or does it
Yeah.
just appear to be safer? Okay.
No, it's legitimately, you
I
can't
mean,
put a foot through. Like before,
right.
you weren't
Okay.
going to fall
Right.
before because the gap was 6 inches, but you could have slid a foot through and, like bonked your butt. A boy could have hurt his nards, but now it's like walking across a land bridge. You can't see any.
Right.
It's genuinely safe.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that it's safer is the only argument they have, but it
Yeah,
is unfortunate because, but here's again, if you extrapolate forward, right, when you have people who never have to overcome fears, and this is what it seems like, like when you're an adult and you're looking at like when Truman has a problem, you're like, really? You're like, come on, buddy, like,
one thing we've done
because
since the beginning of parenting is we have this phrase that's called problem solve. Whenever they come to us with like a minor thing, I can't do
yeah,
this, I can't do whatever, it's, hey, problem solve. We don't do things for them, or we
yeah,
teach them as we do it. Oh, you can't, I can't think of an example, but here, let's do
right,
it together. Now you learn. But our first response is, well, can you problem solve? And it's kissing
right,
cousins to what you're talking about. Overcoming
yeah.
fear is the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like just, and what happens if you don't have kids who learn that way, what happens when they get older? And I've met many of them, and to a certain degree, I suppose I had been one of them, just in the ways in which I was sheltered. I'm also childlike in that way, right? Like afraid of things that are silly, right? I suppose maybe we all are. Interesting. Anyway, like when I find adults who haven't had to do things like that, like go through some kind of weird rite of passage, right? Like what your daughter did is a rite of passage. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's not a major thing to you, but to her that was a really big deal because many kids turn away and don't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
many
And she
kids fail
was
that
super proud
test.
of herself. And I told her I was
Right.
proud of her.
Right. And but that gave her that thing that she gained in that moment changed the rest of her life in the way that anything that is less scary than that, she is unconsciously not afraid of. She
Yeah.
doesn't even know it. But anything that is below that doesn't bother her. It just, even if it did before she did that, it no longer did after that. Do you know what I mean? Like those kinds of things have these broad sweeping effects on your life in a way. And if you don't ever do them, then that keeps you in this place. And the adults who are like that, what I find is that there are things that are really easy and innocent and not that big a deal, but it causes a real meltdown, like a real meltdown. And that is the cost of what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, yes, the children are safer, but maybe if the boy bangs his nards, maybe that teaches him to pay attention.
Well,
You know?
I read I can't remember. It was just it was a blog. It was where someone was talking about removing a jungle gym. You remember those? The
Oh
metal
yeah,
you climb on,
yeah,
and they said like I think if I remember the story correctly, a parent took their kid. The kid broke their arm or something like that, and they took it to the hospital. And the doctor mentioned in passing, like, "Yeah, we get probably 2 of these a year from that jungle gym." And the parent said, "Oh my God, should we get rid of it? Should we petition the school?" And the doctor said, "No, no, 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 no. I'm not making light of the fact 2 a year break their arm, but think of the overall skills the kids learn from playing on it, and like the cost, benefit, reward, whatever in business terms." But yeah, it was. There are some people that would say no children should break their arm, and the doctor was saying, "Look, it sucks that 2 kids break their arms. It does suck, but overall it's worth it for the benefit of the kids and society and challenges and overcoming and blah blah." And the parent
yeah.
in the blogger was like, "You know what, I really hate the fact my kid got hurt, but I get it." And I worry that more parents do not get it than get it, that would say, "Nope, my kid
Come
got hurt,
on.
the jungle gym goes away."
This is the argument that people, when they talk about a good society versus a great society, right? Like a lot of people argue that the liberals are trying to make us great, but it's not possible because you can't legislate out certain things. Certain things are just going to be what they're going to be, and the overall cost of getting rid of this is too high. But if what you're striving for is a zero broken arm policy, right? Then yeah, you get rid of the jungle gym. Like you legit, you get rid of it if that's your goal, right? And I guess it depends on what is our goal. Is our goal keeping our children safe, or is our goal raising resilient children? Right? Like what is the overarching goal, right? Because I think that ultimately our goal is safety, and safety born out of litigation ultimately,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? Like I know many people who, didn't you have a joke about this? About people having a their plan is to sue somebody or something to get rich? Didn't you do a joke about
Maybe.
this
I don't remember.
years ago? Years ago. Yeah, you did a joke about something like that and playing the lottery or something, something like that, whatever. But like,
You just make me flash back to, I remember I got in a car accident. I've been in like, Hilly was asking me about it. So how many car accidents you've been in? I'm like, I think 4, none of which were my fault. And I remember getting in one where I fully said, don't worry, I'm not going to sue you. I'm fine. Something like the person was like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. Don't worry. No lawsuits coming your way. We're good. Just, pay for my car. But that was like my first response is, don't worry. I'm not going to take you for all you're worth. It was an accident.
yeah, yeah, that's yeah. To me, I feel like it's funny because that's how I've been, and every time I've been in an accident too. I think I in one accident I went to the chiropractor for like 2 weeks or something.
And did
You
they cure
know,
you of
just
cancer and COVID and AIDS and Ebola?
yeah, dude, you've been the same person.
Yeah, that's
No,
the
I mean,
some of
I
them
got my
claim that.
I got my back cracked and they did the electro stim thing. And it did, and it was fun. I was like, I did feel better. And I was like, okay, good, I'm good. Like whatever. Maybe it was like a month, but it wasn't anything extreme. And I could have really milked it and sued the person and pay, it's just like, oh
Yeah.
my God. But like we live in a remarkably litigious society. When I was a kid, we had a half pipe in my backyard, but I also had a quarter pipe before that. And the quarter pipe we built was, we eyeballed it. You know what I mean? The half pipe had specs, like the magazine had specs, so we built it. But the quarter pipe, we eyeballed it. You know what I mean? So it was what it was. But we could use it. And one of my friends, he broke it. He broke his collarbone. Right? He kept on doing this thing every time, and every single time we said, "Dude, you're gonna over rotate, you're gonna fall, you're gonna get hurt. You got to stop doing it like this over and over and over." And he didn't listen, and sure enough, he fell and snapped his collarbone. He went home, told his parents. They told me not to do this a dozen times. I didn't listen. This was my fault. His parents went, "You dumb schmuck." Well, they're what's the term you use for moderately income Caucasians?
Um,
So, Caucasians with a small income. So they
oh, is
called
that the
him some.
politically correct? Yeah, politically correct term
Right,
for.
I'm kidding.
We're nothing if kind on this
Right.
podcast. We would never
Economically
call trailer
challenged.
park trash white trash. Never.
Economically challenged Caucasians. They
Yes.
called him something else, but they did not sue my parents. My parents were horrified. Like, the fuck are you kids doing out there? And they didn't say that. My parents never. I'd never heard those words come out of my parents' mouth. But but they. But like the point is that like nobody sued us.
Yeah.
The kid admitted it was his fault. They did it, and then we built a half pipe, and over time, when too many people started to show up in the yard and too many people that weren't friends started to show up, my parents were like, okay, enough. Like we don't know these kids.
Yeah.
They don't know us. This could potentially be a real problem. You're going to have to take that thing down. But by that point, I was 16 going on 17, you know, and I had been playing music. Maybe I was,
You were kind
music
of
had
done
become
skating
more,
anyway.
yeah, like music had become more important. You know what I mean? Like it just things took a different turn. But like, yeah, nobody sued anybody. And by the time you and I were in college, and by the time we were of age to have children, the basic stuff, like what you're talking about, monkey bars and jungle gyms, on concrete, mind you, right? On concrete.
Yeah.
Like the swing set was on concrete.
That's how I busted
Right?
my arm
Right.
in 5th grade or whatever when I was 10 years old. I got a scar right down here in my elbow
Right.
from the operation.
Yeah. You do the joke, another old joke of yours, the mom arm, dad arm joke,
Yeah.
right?
I still
That
pull
was
that out every so often because it's what
that's
the
not
kids
even
call
a
a
but
winner.
that's not even a thing anymore. Because there's airbags and belts go like this and like this. Like when we were kids, belts went over your lap.
Yeah.
Not or they didn't, there was, you know what I mean? Now it's like every belt is a harness. There's airbags all around the cars. There's not even a mom or dad arm anymore. It's not even an instinct that parents have. Like literally, we've bred it out of a whole nation of people. How sad.
Before we get too far down a rabbit hole, I do want to go off a couple of things you said. One, when my daughter was a toddler, we took her on a walk through the neighborhood, really slow because she's wobbling like a penguin and figuring out her legs. But she saw a playground and not playground, like a little playhouse and a trampoline, or maybe it was just a playhouse, doesn't matter, in someone's backyard. And she just started walking toward it. And my wife is, no, don't, it's not ours. And I'm like, well, there are people back there. Let's just go talk to them. And we didn't know these people, but she just beelined it and we walked up to the parents and like, hey, that's our daughter. How are you? I'm this guy. And we had a nice conversation. And when we left, he goes, hey, if she wants to play on here anytime, if we're not home, we walk up, and no thoughts of like litigation or loss. It was like, and I remembered thinking, wow, this is, quote, Midwest values as opposed to liberal lawsuits or whatever you want to call it. So that's one thought I just had. And the other one is when it comes to skateboarding, you remember we've saw now they're documentaries, but back in the day with the crisis in California and kids discovering they could skate in empty pools, skateboarding, I think, is the perfect example, the perfect marriage of cost, reward, benefit, danger, all that, because there's still a skate park in Iowa City and it's relatively new, within 10 years, maybe 15, something like that. The point is, back then, no pads, no helmets. It was just you fall down, you break your collarbone, you could get a concussion, you could get seriously hurt. And what they've done since is, okay, you can still skateboard. We're not going to take everything away. Just put on some pads and a helmet. And so I think that is you don't just shut it down. You don't say you can never skateboard again. You say, look, you might get hurt, but let's try and mitigate the damage. And I think that society would benefit quite well if lawsuits were tossed more often when they were obviously illegitimate, and B, we did look at most situations from instead of outright banning it, let's find the happy medium between danger and safety. And that goes to where this started with my TikTok video. Yeah, I'm not going to go on and say, ooh, I'm watching porn and she's got big old titties and he put his dick between them and he blew all over her face. I would never say anything like that. That's inappropriate. Sure? Why would those words ever exit my mouth? But if I say the word porn, it shouldn't automatically get flagged and taken down just because I used a word, because that's removing the idea of a topic to be discussed.
But I mean, again, when as a nation, like culturally speaking, when have we ever used moderation? Like really?
Yeah.
Like when has that ever been a thing, right? Like, and that's what I mean. Like, I feel like this is cultural. I would be curious
Isn't
to
that a
see,
Billy
like,
Joel song? Sometimes I go to extremes, and that's all we do.
Right. Yeah, like that's literally, we live in the extremes, or we allow the extremes to be the things that dictate our behavior.
The
And a
loudest
perfect
megaphone
example,
wins. Why is
well,
my
a
furnace
perfect
kicking on? I
example
turned it
is
off.
you know, like people who have, if in families where there's lots of kids, right? If you have one kid that's a real bully, oftentimes instead of telling that kid to not be a bully, they tell the other kids not to bother that kid and not to provoke that kid, because that kid is just so much trouble to deal with that everybody else just adapts their behavior around the problem rather than dealing with the problem. Again, very American, right?
I hate to go political here, but isn't that how we got Trump?
But I mean, it's ultimately connected. Like what you're talking about how they're flagging the word porn, right? Because here's the thing: you can say adult content adult content websites, which basically means porn. It's a euphemism, and everybody's okay with that, but you can't say porn.
Yeah, and that's
It's
what I
like,
did. That's why the current
right,
video's up and getting
right.
decent reactions.
But like, I know someone who will not eat chicken on the bone.
Who will not what? Oh,
Will
eat
not
chicken on
eat
the bone.
chicken
You
on the
broke up for
bone.
half a second, but
Right. The only way she'll eat chicken is in nugget form or patty form or some kind of tender form where it
sucks to
doesn't
be her
remind
boyfriend.
her.
Hey,
Aha! But you know what I mean? Like, it's this idea that if I pretend it's not meat, then I can eat it. But it's
all
like,
right.
well, but isn't that exactly what we're talking? Like, again, like we're led by these, like this sense of like, let's pretend that the extremes aren't that extreme, right?
Well,
But
let's
let's
make fun of
also,
the Amish. They do that all the time. There's a I have a friend who lives in Pennsylvania who is a taxi for the Amish. Oh, English, we can't use a car. That's against our religion. But can you please take us to the doctor? I mean, as long as they ride in it, but they don't own it, it's somehow
right,
okay.
right, yes, right, yeah. It's this certain amount of hypocrisy, right? The extremes don't exist, but the extremes dictate our behavior, but yet they don't exist.
Yeah.
Right? They're not. It's not as bad as you think it is. It's not that much of a thing, but yet it's like, right, that's how we live our lives as Americans. And in that same way that we stop, all playgrounds are made out of Nerf material,
Yeah.
or like all that stuff, because it's like, well, what if one kid gets hurt? What if something happens? We go to the extremes and go, well, let's stop all kids from getting hurt. So now kids are going to have to be wrapped in bubble tape to go play on all these things. All the floor is made out of cotton. You know what I mean?
Well, and it gets worse, and I have to be really delicate here. When you and I were kids, and I'm going past safety, now I'm going to education. If there was someone that didn't get a concept, they were, not flagged, but flagged. It was noted this kid doesn't get math or reading or whatever it is. And they were sort of taken out of the classroom for math during math. And, they got a group of them together and said, okay, well, do you remember what it was called? It wasn't called the slow group, but they would go to the library or they would go somewhere and get special help with math or reading. And today, every kid gets what's called a para. It's if you don't understand something, you have someone sitting right next to you. You don't get removed from the classroom. You have someone sitting right next to you, helping you. And I was a substitute teacher for a while, and sometimes they'd have me para, and these kids expected me to do the work for them. And one of them even said, like, why are you trying to show this to me? The other person just does it. I'm like, that's not how this works. And the whole point where I said I have to be delicate is I'm fully aware of someone who cannot read and is getting passed through grades because that's what happens. I mean, you're not doing any benefit to that child at this point. And I don't know what the answer is. They said it was stigmatizing to remove them from the classroom. Is it less stigmatizing to have an adult sitting next to them in the classroom? Is it less stigmatizing to pass them through if they do not understand a concept and say, well, it's better for you to be in 6th grade and unprepared for 6th grade than it is for you to be in 4th grade for 3 years in a row? I don't know the answer. I'm just not sure there is a right answer. I don't know.
I mean, it's an interesting thing because it's the real question of trading what you want most for what you want now. Like the
Goddamn
idea
good phrase.
of it's not mine. But but this is an example of it, right? Like, I don't want my child's feelings to be hurt now. So in the future, my child won't be able to read stop sign. Right? Like that, like literally.
And then they'll get in a car accident and then they'll get sued. And then we're back to the litigious society.
Right, exactly. But I mean, realistically, like, I'm going to handicap my child for life because I don't want their feelings hurt now.
Yeah.
Because I don't want their feelings hurt now. I don't want them to, I literally want my child to go through life and be handicapped because, like, not being, maybe it's a harsh way of saying it. Like, I mean it in the literal sense of handicap, not in the comparative speaking. God, fuck you liberals. Jesus fucking Christ. I am a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, and I hate you motherfuckers with a passion. I would choke the life out of every one of you tree-hugging motherfuckers in my Birkenstocks with my natural hemp underwear on. I'll choke the life out of you fuckers. Jesus, I can't stand it. The amount we have to send to ourselves, unreal.
They are goddamn
God.
annoying, aren't they? But what's the option? Trump Republicans? I feel so fucked.
No, right, no. I mean, right, it's absurd. The Scylla in Charybdis, right there. But no, I mean, like, it in the literal sense of handicap, not in some kind of comparison to it being the same as being sight impaired or something like that, right? Okay. But like,
Not a golf handicap.
right. Yes, exactly. But like, like, but that's like a real thing, right? Like, I don't want my child to get a broken arm so that now my child is going to literally be afraid of anything that's over 2 feet tall. Not that there's not other ways to teach children how to overcome fears, because there's many ways to do that. But overcoming the fear of words on a page and overcoming the fear of numbers on a page, right? Like, those two things have a real effect on your life.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not you can kind of conceptually wrap your brain around math, around up through basic x plus 2 equals 4, what is x? You know what I mean? Like,
give me a couple minutes here.
Right. Right. But you know what I mean? Like, that kind of, like, up to like basic algebra, if you have real problems there and you are not intellectually challenged, that's based on a fear, right? That somebody that was instilled in you in a young age. Most people I know who can't read, who don't have any kind of issues, right? Their fear of reading becomes from when they were little kids. Like, they couldn't do it and they're embarrassed to do it. Somebody made fun of them, and so they stopped or whatever, and they didn't do it. Or they got pulled out to the special group and that made them feel stupid, or whatever it is, whatever the causal agent is. But not being able to read and not being able to do math up to like algebra 1 or algebra 2, not basic, but that kind of computational thinking, not being able to do that really has a real impact on your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, not because then you can't really, it might, like, man, like,
I watched a couple of South Parks last night, and one of them was when Butters became a pimp. And
that's one of the best ever.
And he goes to the pimp convention, and the pimps are like, all right, you know what I mean? You did. And so when you just said it, because Butter starts going, yes, I know what you mean. And then he goes through his parents. Do you know what I mean? Mom and Dad, do you know what I mean? So when you just said it right there, because it's your stutter phrase.
I know. Dude, but she's like, that was one of the funniest ones. I do know what you are saying.
Yes.
That shit is so funny. Oh,
you know
Mom,
what I'm saying? Yes.
Mom, I have many girlfriends. She's my bottom bitch.
Yep. I watched that one last night.
Dude, that is, look at Stan over there with his girlfriend. You don't have to do any of that for just $5. Looks like my company's offering a service or whatever.
And then after it, because I watch them in order, I watched the one where Stan becomes a whale watcher because the Japanese are whaling. But just the way it begins, where they're in a dolphin pool and suddenly, oh no, it's the Japanese. And they go, oh, fuck you, dolphins. I'm like, the fact that they do not care it's funny because now we're talking about mollycoddling and all the things you can't do. And South Park just does it. And everyone says they're grandfathered in. I'm like, I don't know. Are they? Because Sunny in Philadelphia came out of the blue and they do a lot of things. I mean, it's just a matter of, I think, what you have the balls to do and then not backing down. If someone tries to cancel you, oh, you made fun of whatever you're not supposed to make fun of, or you talked about a subject, instead of like cowering and saying, I'm so sorry, I said porn on it during my thing. Fuck you. Like I did. I said, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to use the words adult content. I'm going to find end arounds to everything that is, it's It's,
Right.
oh
But
God,
I
this is a
mean,
horrible
are you
comparison, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's Peter Gabriel's Melt album, where he told the drummer, hey, guess what? I'm taking all your cymbals away. So you still have your drum set, but you can't go, brr, tsh. You have to find an end around. So maybe that's the battle is you have one side, the extremes. One side is saying you can't do anything. The other side is saying you can do everything. And in the middle, I'm like, I'm going to try and be sneaky and do what I want to do given your parameters. I have no idea. This is all just off the top of my head.
I mean,
But
it
maybe
seems
it's
like
also because I'm an adult and I know how to think critically, just like Aaron Rodgers, and get immunized against COVID. Anyway, but yeah, if you don't teach kids thinking skills, then they will be paralyzed with every situation that looks like a barrier instead of finding
right.
a way over, under, or
Yeah.
around that barrier.
Right. As you say, problem solve.
Yeah.
And when you deal the very same people who are creating these children, right? Like let's say you have a child at 25, right? And
Wow, I would have been a fucked up parent at 25.
I mean, I just say that to make the math easy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, let's say you have a child at 30, right? And at 55, you're pretty high up in a company, right? And you have 25-year-olds coming in. The very 25-year-olds that you can't fucking stand are the very ones you raised. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? The
which is
very
where
ones
we're at.
coming into your company whining and crying and wetting themselves and telling you that they need a diaper machine in the bathroom because they can't hold their urine. You know?
So you're talking about Amazon employees and their lack of bathroom breaks.
Oh, see. Right. Then there's that, right? Then there's the other extreme.
Right.
Where you have to wear a diaper like you're some fucking surgeon. You're a heart surgeon doing a 24-hour surgery that you can't leave. So you got to wear a diaper. I would understand that, right? Because you're like, listen, we're going to be here. I cannot leave. It's just going to have to be what it's going to have to be.
To be
Not
fair, I can
somebody...
understand diaper on the Amazon line too, because God damn it, I want my trinket that I ordered.
Exactly. God forbid that they pack 3,000 things in a day instead of 3,002.
Hey,
Like,
if I get it
Jesus.
tomorrow, that's too late. I needed it yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But you know what I mean? Like you know,
Yeah,
you
so you've
raise
got the
these
generation
children,
you raised that now you can't stand, which is what I said. We're
right? You can't
gaslighting them.
fucking
We
stand them,
raised
right?
them, and now we're telling them that everything is their fault. It's
Right.
understandable that they're angry,
But we
or that there's
shielded
the battle
them.
going on between boomers
It's
and
and
millennials.
the children and their children,
Yeah.
basically, like literally. It's like, but
Which is
here's
why my
the
favorite meme is the one where it's you've seen this, where it's an old guy screaming and it says boomers, and then there's a millennial screaming, and then there's a little kid and someone our age having a tea party, and it says zillennials and Gen X, as like we're in the middle, just sort of getting
right.
along and not caring as the boomer. I love that one because it's exactly how I feel. Like I look
Yeah.
at those two screaming at one another, I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some funny shit. Yeah, what a funny. It's like, God, man. Like I feel like we do such a good job of trying to hide everything from people, like trying to shield everybody from everything and hide everyone. Because like you can argue that it's a conservative thing, right? Oh, we want to keep the statues up, but we don't want to teach this in the school.
Right.
Huh. So you think it's okay to teach that the statues should stay, but not the reason why the statues were put there and anything about the people who put them there. And that seems reasonable. Uh-huh. Okay, got it. Then on this other side, you
Tear
have
down
this thing
every
where
fucking statue.
tear down every statue, teach everything to children, but again, like it's that selective thing, right? So you think religion should be taught in school? Is that all religion or just yours?
It's
You know
not
what I
even
mean?
that. It's you say teach everything to children, but it's just as narrow on the left. They want to, and I'm speaking in broad terms, and I apologize. And when I say broad, I don't mean feminine. Oh God damn it, problematic terms. Anyway, it's the
Are
idea
you
that
fat shaming these terms by calling them broad?
the the founding fathers in certain circles on the extreme left, they're just slave owners. That's it. That's where it ends. That's what needs to be taught. Not that they had some interesting political ideas and wrote a constitution and were slave owners, so that they were flawed human beings, as are we all. It ends with the flaw and not the good. There's no balance on either side. On one side, it's founding fathers are geniuses and that's it. On the other side, it's they're slave owners, and it's the truth is in the middle. They were flawed human beings who had good ideas in some areas and real big blind spots in other areas. And that's what we don't teach.
Again, it comes right back to the beginning.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I have to. That's what we don't teach. Shades of gray. We teach things as black and white. I see shades of pink. Someday I'll watch the movie again. Someday I will watch Soul Man. I don't know why I haven't.
Oh, good Lord.
We should see how many episodes in a row we can organically bring it up in. Like, not force it, but just where it organically comes up.
It just shows up. Let's see. I probably a lot, honestly, but but I think that this is ultimately what we're talking about, right? Is the idea of it again? It's like this idea of extremes that we've talked about. We've talked about this before on the podcast, so regular listeners will know that we talk about this idea of being irredeemable.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like on one side you have this hero complex, and then on the other side you have this person who's irredeemable. We're no longer good or bad. We're either it's like good or evil. Yeah. Right. And we are always like everybody always feels like they're the resistance, not the empire, even when they're the empire. And it's like even the people who are the empire, the empiricists is the term, right? I suppose. I don't know. They feel like they're the resistance also. Like, it's absurd. And it's true. If you look at the founding fathers, they're complex. It's complex. We're not, as much as we are like remarkably simple human beings, like as humans, we're very simple. We're also remarkably complex, right? We're remarkably hardy and resilient and self-healing, but a knock on the right spot of your head will kill you. You know what I mean? Right? Like we're like this,
or break your collarbone.
Right, exactly. Right. And an inch or so here or there, and literally is a difference between you living and dying. Like, we're remarkably fragile and remarkably resilient, and I think we oversimplify ourselves to being just good or bad. And it's funny because I had a conversation with someone earlier this morning about what's more dangerous, believing the mythology. Like, if you are alive in America in this moment, what is more dangerous? Believing the mythology that white people have been raised with, believing the mythology that Black people have been raised with, that Latin X people, again, like, fuck you liberals. God, kick you right in your fucking transgender nutsacks. Jesus.
Again, that's not just liberals, that's white liberals that like, I don't know how the Latin community deals with it, where suddenly out of the blue, 5 white liberals said, you are now Latin X, and no one wants the term anyway.
Right. Like, I just want to say, like, all different kinds of people have different kinds of mythology surrounding them.
All colors of the rainbow.
Right. There's like shades of. But I feel like it would be interesting to see, like, we're having a conversation about that, like, what's more dangerous, right? Like, if you're a white person that kind of believes that white people are incapable of doing something bad, not that that's all the mythology surrounding white people, but like, if you're talking about why people think of George Washington and all these people like that, is we mythologize our heroes to not have any flaws.
Can I interrupt you?
Everybody does it. Yeah.
Is it that we believe that, I'm just going to go with white people, that we say that we can't do anything bad, but that our flaws are forgivable?
Yes, right.
Like, it's easier to look at George Washington and say, oh yeah, he did this, but come on, he did, it's a way of justifying the flaws.
Yes.
Right. Whereas we've talked about this. I don't know if we've talked about it, but the idea of judges when that asshole, was it Prosky, he let the Stanford student off on rape, like, you swimmer, Brock Turner, you were raping her, but come on, he's got his whole future ahead of him. But because he's like, he sees himself in that kid. I was a teenager once too, but then a black kid comes in front of him, he's like, oh, this guy carjacked, that's irredeemable, because he doesn't have the black experience, so he's less forgiving.
Yes,
and it's not I'm going to use the N-word racism, it's just the subtle unconscious bias that they talk about.
Right. That's exactly it. Like, there's a tendency for that kind of thinking, but that kind of thinking is really dangerous because it doesn't allow you to see your flaws, because there's an all kind of automatic justification for your bullshit in your own life even. And so the compound effect of that belief on you is quite negative, regardless of any whatever benefits you may get from this other thing.
Brings us back to your question, which is the most harmful, which experience, teaching what experience.
Like long term, the compound effects of believing one kind of mythology breeds one kind of disillusionment and kind of fantasy world that one wants to inhabit. But this other kind of mythology breeds the exact same thing, but in a different way. And so the question we're arguing is, not arguing, but contemplating, is which is more dangerous. And you can take it out of the racial context and just put it into any context.
Religious, gender,
some kind of fundamental mythology, some kind of belief that is not necessarily fact, but gets so woven into the story that it starts to bear weight, like it's a load-bearing fiction. Like this lie actually holds structures of weight, and but it's a bit Wile E. Coyote-ish, right? Like running off on the ledge. You're like, yeah, but you're still running, but only because you're not looking down yet. You know what I mean? And you're too far to the other side to make it. But and there's like a whole bunch of people just going, we need to look down so we can solve this. We need to look down so we can see how far out we are. And then there's a whole bunch of other people going, don't you dare put that head, because you're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? And it's like,
stay the straight and narrow.
Right. But maybe this is where your thing comes into play. Maybe we just need to do this, like slowly look down. You know what I mean? Like take on, like we have to look down, but maybe not all at once,
or even not the same concept, but easier. But we wear blinders instead of just tearing the blinders off. It's like, okay, here we go, picking up a panorama. Oh, there's a big world out there. Yeah, you're just slowly expanding, broadening our horizons.
And watch this. Watch how I do this. Right. It's almost like it's like a gateway drug, right? But it's the exact same concept as a gateway drug. Like your daughter stepped over what was a chasm in her mind, literally. In her mind, that was a fucking chasm. One day she might zip line across the Grand Canyon. You know what I mean? Like literally, like she might, because she did that.
Or zip line across a canyon in the Andes Mountains like her dad did. That's clips available on YouTube. Nathan Timmel, idiot in Ecuador.
Well, we do no self-promotion here. Find me at.
Not that gets me anything. Self-promotion. No, go watch this video of me in Ecuador. It doesn't put any money in my pocket.
No, but that's actually, from a promotional standpoint, that's actually the kind of shit your fans want to see. I don't give a fuck about your jokes. They want to see your life. You know what I mean? Like,
I want to see my life end. He made it.
Exactly.
The funny thing about that, I think I mentioned this, or when we've talked about it, is funny because I'm over 600 feet in the air. Like I'm in the Andes Mountains, and they made me put on a plastic helmet. Like anything goes wrong, I'm dead. There's absolutely, unless the zip line broke 1 second in where I'm off the platform and 10 feet off the ground, sure. But you look at that video and it's like, why am I wearing a plastic helmet? I'm dead. Anything happens, I'm fucking dead.
That's what somebody said. What's this plastic helmet for? The first 10 feet. You're like, that's it, right?
But again, that goes back to the litigations and a lot. But you think that Ecuador would be above such things, like you dead, homie.
But who goes to these things other than white tourists or American tourists?
That's true,
right? Like they grew up ziplining across that in shorts and a t-shirt. You know what I mean?
And what's funny is we were with a tour group, and so it was two sections. There was the gondolier, and then there was the zip line. And we got off the bus, and they're like, "All right, everybody, over to the gondolier." And I went, "What's that?" And they're like, "We're as a tour group, we're not supposed to allow people on that." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing that." And so it was just the tour group didn't have
Again,
insurance for that, but I'm like, "No, you're." And it was the same thing. It's funny when we went, we were outside the
again,
tour
all
group.
the
Then we,
Americans, you Americans didn't follow the rules like everybody else just follow. And you're like, fuck you, I'll do what I want.
well, I was acting like an Ecuadorian in that moment, and I was doing what the Ecuadorians do. So I was learning
Exactly.
local. But
When in
we went.
Rome.
Lydia and I went to Costa Rica once, and that was like not a tour group. That was just us going, and we did a 2-day overnight, best experience ever, whitewater rafting. And this is why I love my wife. I don't know that she would do this for me today. Um, I was pouting because one of my favorite things to do during whitewater rafting is to just like, all right, bye raft, and just jump into the river and like go down the rapids by myself. And so I was pouting, and she told the guide that like, hey, he's like, it's not safe. And she's like, I know, but it's what. And so they found a section of the river that was like not calm, but not like deadly dangerous. And he said, okay, if you want to, you can jump in here. And I did. And it was a blast. I'm like, whoa, like I kept my life jacket on, but it was really because he was rolling his eyes like, do you really need to jump in in these rapids? I'm like, yes, I really need to because it's fun. And me, I'm stupid. I'm like, I got a life jacket on. I can swim. And I did. And I was fine. I'm still here. Or wait, am I my own ghost? I might be dead. Anyway, we've gone off the rails kind of, and we're right around an hour close, a little under. Um, let's wrap this up. You know what
Yeah.
I think might cure society? There's a new album coming out January 21st. It's called On My Way by the Katie Henry Band. And unless I'm mistaken, you're the musical director of it. Shut up. I didn't talk to you. I didn't even say the Amazon.
I thought I heard my name.
Fuck off. Anyway, you ever tell her to fuck off? She makes like this hurt noise, like boom. I don't know if you can hear it going on in the background, but anyway, I didn't even say my talk about On My Way, my friend. You are the musical director for
Yes.
the Katie Henry Band.
Yeah. Yeah. Records coming out 21st. We're at the Stanhope House doing our CD or album release party. Stanhope, New Jersey. Get tickets now, katiehenrymusic.com or Facebook. There's a ticket link there, and definitely come. It's going to be a great show. We've got Lily Bella playing with us and Claire Maloney with Nate DeBrine. They're doing their thing. It's going to be a really fun show. And the album is great. The single's out. There'll be another single coming out in 2 weeks for.
I have heard the album. I got advanced copy. Oh, weren't you going to send me a link to the new video? The video for the single On My Way is on YouTube right now. So Google Katie Henry Band On My Way, and you can find that video. Great fucking song. Really professional, nice looking video.
Yeah, the new video's done. I'll send you a link to it. Yeah, it's a fun one. I'll send it to you. Yeah, man, it's good stuff. So yeah, we're excited. Tour kicks off a week before that. So we'll be touring for a week, and then we'll have the album release show, and then we're gonna keep touring for a month, for another week or two, and then Katie's off. She's off to overseas.
And then while she's off, if you're like, wow, I listened to the album, I need my Baird Antar Goodwin fix. Well, then you just go to antargoodwin.com for all things there. And if you want to, you can take virtual bass lessons on Zoom. I got yelled at for covering my face when I talk, so I'm cupping it toward the microphone this time. I'm cupping as I whisper to the viewer that they can get bass lessons from you or check out your tunes.
Indeed. And that being said, after they come to all the Katie Henry things on the way back, on their drive back, I heard they can listen to an audiobook on their drive back from the Katie Henry gig.
I just emailed them because it's still processing. And so I said, hey, every time I check, it says check back in a day or two. Well, it's been a couple of weeks where it's been processing. So the audiobook is there. I don't know when it's going to be out, but if I don't get a response soon, I may hunt down a new hosting site for it. One of those. I don't know, because this one I have to hear back from customer service as why it's taking so long. But We Are 100 is the book. It's available in ebook, Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. Good reviews on Amazon. It can be found at nathantimmel.com. Just go to nathantimmel.com. It's one of the first things you see, a book you can click, and hopefully it'll be an audiobook soon. And I just got an email yesterday from a nice book blogger who said, hey, link is going live January 4th, so I will have a new review coming up. Hopefully it's a positive one. I'd hate to think she's saying, hey, I hated your book. Can I tell everybody about it January 4th?
Here's a link to it. Here's a link to me shitting on you, buddy.
Yep. All right. Thanks for watching. If you watched on YouTube, thanks for listening. If you listened on Anchor or wherever you listened, because Anchor spreads it around, Spotify, we're on there. And yeah, we'll talk at you next week, viewers/listeners.
Indeed.